politics.
Yes.
How would you advise newcomers to this country in terms of their participation? Because, you know, in Lotto 649, as they say, you have to play to win.
Absolutely true. And I would say, just very quickly, in my riding executive, we have people from all over the world, born here and all over the world. And it's all about, people can complain. It's easy to complain. But you're a stakeholder. And if you want to make a difference, you have to get involved. It may be on a riding association level. It may be running as a candidate.
And it doesn't matter which political party.
It doesn't matter, but it means that you have to, though, do your homework. You can't expect to be president of a company overnight, and you can't expect to, so you need to do your groundwork. And I would say to you that at municipal level, which is unfortunately is not as well attended in terms of voting. I mean, often you see 25–30% of the people vote, and yet the issues that affect you most directly, whether it is garbage pickup, whether it's road construction, whether it's a development in your neighborhood, is at the municipal level. And people need to pay attention to that. And next year will be an election year across the province of Ontario for cities, towns, and villages. And what for me is important is that was excellent training for me for my 12 years. And I became national president of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And I got to look at best practices across the country and be able to talk to your community. For me, the community, all the things that may go on in Ottawa are very nice, but it's what you do in your local community. It's being able to save a certain tree stand. It's being able to make sure that certain things are done in a manner which people will remember as a legacy for them, so that they know that it's all about a better community in which they live in. The quality of life indicators are very, very important. And so for newcomers, when they come, the first thing I often get people to say is, when I'm out and talking, and they say, well, you can't be the member of parliament. And I'll say, well, why is that? Well, I come from so-and-so, and we'd never meet the member of parliament. I said, well, you know, you're in Canada. And the first thing you need to know is that you do meet your member of parliament, and that you elect me. And you're not always going to hear the answer you want, but at least you're going to get an answer. And it's important, get involved. And so often, we have a lot of newcomers that come and involve themselves in, say, a political campaign. And whether it's putting up signs, door knocking, making phone calls, whatever. And I'm often impressed that sometimes we have people making calls in 20 different languages in Richmond Hill. But the fact is that there's an ownership. And so they can say to their friends, I was part of this. Or if they're on the riding executive, I'm part of decision making. And so it's not something distant and say, well, I never meet. You're part of this, you're a stakeholder, and you have a right, but you also have a responsibility. And that's one of the things I like to emphasize. You have a responsibility to participate. Whatever you decide, whatever party, if it's at a provincial or federal level, obviously it's important that you show that ownership and that responsibility by not just voting, which is extremely important, but by doing other things that contribute to the betterment of the community.
When the provincial government is a Liberal Party and the federal government is the Conservative Party, or vice versa, does it create a complication with respect to federal-provincial relationships?
I would suggest to you that if it's a Liberal government in Ottawa, which of course I have been part of, and a Conservative government in the province of Ontario, sometimes they actually work better. But it's because I think people in Ontario tend to like the opposite. Whatever they have in one, they like in the other. But it is, sometimes they use the scapegoats on both sides. But I think it's important that people, again, look at what are the values the political parties are bringing. Do they, in fact, reflect your values? Do they reflect your family in terms of reflecting what it is that you'd like to see for the future? And so having different parties, sometimes when you have the same party, it can be a problem. Or if it is not your party and they're in power at the provincial level and you're at the federal level in opposition, as we currently have for the Liberal Party, sometimes people confuse and say, well, but you're both Liberals. Well, no, it's very different in terms of responsibilities, and we can't take credit or we can't take the blame if one government does something. Because, and I'll give you an example, on the harmonization tax, it's the federal Conservative government that has offered $5.9 billion, both to the governments of British Columbia and Ontario, to sign on. And I will tell you that if they didn't get that $5.9 billion in total, they would not have signed on to the HST. But it's the Conservative government who will have to bring in the legislation in order to do the harmonization. Harmonization, in theory, is very good, especially from the business community. But the problem is, in a tough economic situation like this, there are clearly issues, and what will not be taxed currently and will be taxed in the future is of concern to people. So if people contact me, it's the provincial Liberal government who's made an agreement with the federal Conservative government, and they have to deal with those two. Because in opposition, we're not making the rules. I can tell you, though, that the issues of taxation is one in which, in theory, the best way, and we talked earlier about the GST, the best way to put money in people's pocket is not by reducing the GST, it's by reducing income tax. Income tax, and our government started the move on corporate taxes, so we are lower than the United States today. Income taxes, we brought in a $100 billion tax cut over 5 years in the year 2000. Putting money in your pocket, and I'd rather you as an individual manage your money than government. But the reality is that taxes are a necessary evil as well, because if people want the kind of social services that we have, or health care, we see the great debate in the United States on health care, and very interesting issues that are being raised. But Canadians take health care for granted. It's one of the things that we're very proud of. You don't go to the hospital and have to give your credit card, you have your OHIP number, say, in the province of Ontario. And that's an important social service, but we pay for it. And so when people say, well, I don't like paying taxes, and nobody likes paying taxes, but if you want certain services, then you have to pay for it.
Interesting. Bryon, it's an absolute pleasure having you on the program with us.
As always, Shan, good to see you.
And likewise, and we'd love to have you back very, very soon.
And congratulations on all the great work you're doing. I know the Olympics are coming. I know you're going to be again involved. And just hats off to you and all of the people that work here.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you.